Welcome to the show, folks. It is Friday. It is a million degrees here in New York. And if you made it this far, congratulations. It's the end of the week. I'm your host, Max Burns. And for the next half hour, we're breaking down the biggest stories that hit the news this week and laughing through the tears as the world continues to go insane. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheMaxBurns and follow us on YouTube at Lincoln Square Media and on Substack at Lincoln Square. As always, leave your comments during the show and we will put them up and try and get to them. And we're going to do the best we can with one of the craziest weeks we've had in a while. I'm joined this morning by the one-of-a-kind Jessie Beyer. She's one half of the Pretty Informed Girls team, and she continues our tradition of having people on who are much, much smarter than I am. Jessie, how are you?
I'm having audio issues again. But I tried to do a little lip reading there. I'm Jessie. I'm with Pretty Informed Girls. I'm really excited to be on the show today. I understand we have a lot to talk about. Hopefully I can get this audio issue under control, but all good over here so far. I hope same on the other side.
It's the tech meltdown on the markets. Well, we're glad to have you, Jessie. I hope we can get your sound working. Before we get to that, we had a huge story here in New York. The Knicks winning their third game in a nail biter, one of the craziest comebacks in history, down 30 points at the half. And that final shot in the last seconds sent Madison Square Garden into a frenzy, including Jerry Seinfeld doing one of the most Jerry Seinfeld responses I've ever seen to anything. Let's play that clip.
I can't believe it!
It's art imitating life. It was beautiful. Somehow, the Knicks winning that miracle comeback is not one of our top 5 stories of the week. But one of the stories that is primaries. Now, primaries have been going on all season, but this week, 4 states went to the polls to take part in the slop fest we call American democracy. And the biggest race was obviously in Maine, where progressive Democrat Graham Plattner clinched what's been an increasingly controversial nomination to face off against Susan Collins in November. There's also a big moment in South Carolina where Nancy Mace, who was running for governor, finished a distant 5th in her campaign, ending her career in Congress. Nancy Mace, of course, telling the press she intended to fail and actually wanted to leave Congress anyway. So that's fine, just fine. Everything's perfect. Not a total embarrassment for her. Big races going on across the board, a lot of nail biters going on, especially among progressive versus centrist Democrats, and increasing fights over Chuck Schumer attempting to stage manage how these candidates are being chosen, and voters increasingly rejecting Washington's message for them and choosing candidates who maybe not the most polished in the world, but are certainly appealing to them in ways that these Democratic candidates that are chosen by the DNC simply are not. Now, the latest Tavern Research poll out of Maine has Plattner up about 2 points on Susan Collins, 51 to 49. That's down quite a bit after a couple of weeks that have clearly taken a toll, with new scandals coming out, including several of Plattner's ex-girlfriends commenting on his own behavior with them, and renewed comments about his drinking. This is raising comments about Blue MAGA and really testing the limits of whether Democrats can emulate Republicans in nominating imperfect candidates who are nevertheless popular. Now, Jessie, I hope we have you because I want to get your thoughts on this for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it should be all set now. I think it's such a complicated situation because we do hold ourselves to a higher standard, but it's when you put these two candidates next to each other, like Susan Collins has a track record of doing harmful things in her seat. Yeah. Of course, we can't even speak to Graham Plattner, what he would do in that position. It's disheartening to see these things come out. I think there is some validity to, will you just vote for the blue candidate no matter what? But he is saying that he'll do things, and it's, how do we know that he wouldn't?
Yeah.
Were he in that position?
And so much of this debate seems to be happening more in the insider Democratic circles than among voters. This talk about, can we have a morally imperfect candidate, or do we need someone who is essentially without flaw to run? But I've not seen that reflected in the actual voters. Plattner, even after a couple of tough weeks, still leading in every poll that's come out. And the sentiment seems to be that people are simply sick of Susan Collins serving as a rubber stamp for Donald Trump. And that matters much more to those voters in Maine than Plattner's personal failings that he's admitted to multiple times.
Yeah, I agree. And I was going to speak specifically to the Maine voter. I'm not hearing this from them at all. None of them. They are all very much just, we do not want any more Susan Collins. Graham Plattner is not a perfect person, but who is, you know?
Yeah.
They're very frustrated with the narrative that seems to be disregarding how they feel and what they want.
Yeah. And of course, South Carolina as well with Nancy Mace. Tough night for her. She's now, I think, the fourth Republican who called for the release of the Epstein files, who has been defeated in a primary this year. Pretty much any Republican who has stood up to Donald Trump has been shown the door. And Mace, trying to pretend like she actually intended to lose because she wanted to go to the private sector. But you have to imagine with all that she put into this, I mean, that's a massive setback for the anti-Trump, or at least Trump lightly critical wing of the party.
Right. And I think that Trump also may be overplaying his hand there in backing candidates that are otherwise less popular within the party. People who've held these seats for so long, him backing the other candidate, I mean, time can only tell, but I don't know that that's necessarily a strategically sound decision. I'm happy about it, but.
Yeah, Democrats definitely hoping for a replay of 2018 where Trump went way to the right and ended up getting nailed for it. There's a comment here from Arc Reactor. It's one thing to vote for a person. It's another thing to vote for them, but then not hold the person who you vote for to a standard by calling them and putting them pressure on them to get in line. I think that's absolutely true. It says no one who voted for Trump puts pressure on Trump to get his crap together. That's the real problem. Don't make the same mistake. 100%. And it certainly seems like Plattner's going to have a lot of proving himself to do if and when he gets to Washington.
Absolutely.
So speaking of crazy crises, we get to our fourth story here of the week. The Iran crisis, the on again, off again, on again, off again crisis is back on again as the U.S. and Iran exchange missile fire this week, including the first Iranian strikes on Israel since the April ceasefire. Now, yesterday, Donald Trump declared that he had a peace deal on the table that was approved and ready to go. This morning, as you can see from this post, he went back on that, saying that Iran leaked out a fake news peace deal, even though he's the one who posted it, and that they have no idea what they're doing, they can't be trusted, and they need to get their act together fast. Sounds like everything's going great, Jessie.
Yeah, it's classic taco behavior. I have to wonder, what his base thinks when they see these things of him blatantly disregarding his own actions or disagreeing with his own actions. I just can't fathom how anyone wouldn't be alarmed and confused at this behavior. It's so nonsensical and such a serious topic too, for him to be acting like this. It's terrifying. It's comical, but it's insane.
Yeah. And I went back because I'm ill and looked at all of the past comments Trump has made. This today is the 14th time he has promised and backed out of a peace deal since this war started in February. And what jumps out to me here is, where is Secretary of State Marco Rubio? I mean, he has been invisible in this process. He is nowhere to be found right now. The State Department doesn't seem to exist in this administration.
Yeah, I feel that that's a recurring theme. It's the Trump show. And there are all of these characters who would, in any other administration, be taking the forefront. Like, it's their direct department, their direct responsibility to be taking these matters into their own hands, or somewhat. And we're just not seeing anything. Even Kash Patel, all these things that have to do with the FBI, like, where is he? Where is Marco Rubio? Where is Pete Hegseth even? Not that I want to see more of any of them, but it's just, where are they?
It must be bad if Pete Hegseth is avoiding a camera. I mean, that's a nightmare for him.
He's not taking the stand. Things cannot be good.
And things are getting worse domestically as well. We saw a report yesterday that oil company executives are now directly warning the White House that gas prices will get worse through the summer if this war continues, that there is no way around it, that corporations and private companies are drawing down their own oil reserves to keep things flowing. This is exactly what Donald Trump wants a few months out from a huge midterm election, is
Yeah,
even his own allies saying it's going to get so much worse for Americans.
yeah, it's already astronomical, the prices. I mean, I drive a sedan. It cost me $70 the other day. I was like, I've
Yeah.
never paid that much. And to think of people in middle America, in low income areas, who genuinely, like, that does make the difference to them. And those are people who largely probably voted for Donald Trump, and they will notice. Like, eventually, maybe right now they're trying to close their eyes, but the higher it gets, the harder it's going to be for them to ignore it, especially when the oil companies are coming out and saying, we don't want this either.
Yeah. Yeah. Even the American businesses who are supposed to be the ones Donald Trump says are the only people to listen to are saying he's wrong. Do you think this war continue? Are we at war by the midterms still?
I just can't see him taking a road that he feels is sufficient that would get us out of this. Like, I can't see him. He's going to have to be humble in some way to get us out of this. And I have a hard time envisioning that unless they figure out some way to trick him into thinking that he's actually winning. I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Things,
what do you think?
I mean, one of the challenges that seems interesting to me is for a lot of Americans, usually foreign policy doesn't really register. They don't follow it. They don't care. But huge numbers of Americans are paying attention to this because it's affecting them at home, and it's affecting their grocery prices, their gas prices, the ability to get medicine through the Strait of Hormuz. And I'm curious for you, as someone who's engaging a lot with the domestic side of things and seeing where people are, how do you see people feeling this war?
I mean, definitely gas. Gas is the most, but it's also people just being so frustrated that they aren't being listened to. And I think that goes across the aisle. Of course, I mostly engage with people on the left who already are against this war, never wanted this, knew exactly what was going to happen. But I think there are definitely people in the middle and on the right who are also like, we never wanted this either. And it is having tangible consequences for us. Like, financially specifically is where people feel it the most. And people who have military family members who have to be worrying if they're going to get deployed. I think that's a huge thing too.
And it doesn't seem like Donald Trump is really paying attention to this or treating it like a crisis. I mean, he's out today showing off his UFC battle dome on the White House lawn and bragging about how he filled the reflecting pool with water as if this is a signature second term achievement. Do you think that disconnect is starting to wear with voters?
I do. Especially the amount of times just recently he's come out and said, I don't care about inflation. I'm not worried about the average American's finances. I'm not worried about their economic status. The more that he blatantly says it, it makes it very hard for people to disregard, even people who are less involved, because that is going to affect everyone. And just seeing these gross displays of lack of concern for people and wealth and using our money to do these things, I think is really striking a nerve with people.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought that up. Trump saying this week, I like the inflation after inflation numbers came in at 4.3% month over month. It's a much higher than expected and really putting pressure on a lot of red state people who are on fixed incomes and who are already struggling with having higher health insurance premiums. I like the inflation. I mean, that's got to make its way into an ad.
It has. We have to get better at clipping. We have to get better at getting people to see that. I actually was just recently in South Carolina and we were just watching TV and all of these ads, these political ads are coming on. And we were all thinking this is so out of the norm for us because we live in Massachusetts. We don't get ads really like that, but we should be getting more. Like, it's gross in a lot of ways, the way that the Republicans do it, but we have to play the game. Like, that's what it's come down to.
Yeah. And speaking of playing the game, it seems like with nothing to talk about as far as achievements, Republicans are just slowly losing their minds, which brings us to our third story, Talarico Derangement Syndrome, the TDS I do like. Now, I don't know if you guys have been following this, but after James Talarico won the Democratic primary in Texas, he jumped to a lead over Ken Paxton, the Republican opponent, after Ken Paxton became a nutcase. Now, Republicans are absolutely melting down over this because Talarico is not an easy man to beat. He has mainstream positions that a lot of even Republican voters like. He's brought in a lot of people who are not usually involved in politics. And so they've resorted to AI deepfakes and name calling. I think we have a video.
In white dresses with blue satin sashes, girls stuffed with hormones till they grow mustaches, changing the gender of all your offspring. These are a few of my favorite things.
And Republicans are cooked if this is what they got. Jessie, what do you make of this?
He's not even in the right key. He's not even singing in tune.
And you have to assume if Talarico was, as Ken Paxton said, a transgender freak, he'd know his show tunes.
Right, exactly. I guess they know their audience. Their audience may not be able to pick up on that.
And that video is just the latest in a string of attacks on Talarico, none of which have anything to do with his actual positions. They've coined the name Talafrico to describe him. They've yelled at him for having a hot girlfriend. They've yelled at him for apparently being a vegan, even though there's volumes of video showing him eating giant turkey legs at the Texas State Fair. And they've called him transgender. They've called him pro-immigrant. And none of this seems to be moving the dial. It seems to actually be making most Texans disgusted enough to check out entirely, which I would think helps Talarico. What's your take?
Definitely. I think they're losing their touch. They used to come up with, I don't know, is Trump not helping them? They used to come up with such better nicknames than Talarico. And just the insults and the slander they're hurling at him is so out of touch, like so unbased in reality. I think either people check out or they do look into Talarico, and he's so likable. He's their bread and butter, and he's not, the way that he speaks is so accessible to the people of Texas that I find it hard to believe sending anyone his way would hurt him.
Yeah, it's such an interesting play to actually drive people to your opponent. And Talarico especially, I think, is fascinating because of this message that he has of we can disagree and we can talk about those disagreements, but right now, let's fix the fact that you can barely afford your rent and you can't afford gas. And let's work on that. And then you can tell me all the things you disagree with me on, but I want to help you first. And Ken Paxton, by comparison, has said none of that. I mean, Talarico had a great line last week where he said, if someone like Ken Paxton is going to call me Talafrico, a man who let a convicted pedophile out of jail early and then fought to keep him off the sex offender list, I'm not sure Ken Paxton's the kind of guy to call anybody a freak.
Right. And that's how you combat these things. Like, he's so equipped to deal with it. I think maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, people would have been more willing to settle for the bare minimum that Ken Paxton gives them. But things are tough and people are struggling. And James Talarico is giving them these options, these ways that he wants to help them. And yes, he's saying, I love trans kids, but he's saying, I love these children. And I find it hard to believe that even these, like, anyone who is so hateful would find issue with that.
Yeah. I mean, even making fun of him for being a Christian, which is a weird place to see Republicans at, honestly. And none of it seems to be working. I don't know if you've seen things on the ground in Texas from people you've talked to, but we see a recent poll here that shows up to a third of Republicans who voted for John Cornyn, Paxton's primary opponent, say they absolutely will not vote for Ken Paxton in November. They would rather stay home. And that is the highest number we've ever seen among Republicans in Texas.
Yeah, I haven't engaged all too much with the people on the ground in Texas, the voter base necessarily in Texas, more so people who are engaged politically. But from what I also know about Texas, if they're able to disengage white Republican Texas voters or send them James Talarico's way, who is somebody who is up their alley, like if you take the D outside of his name, I think they will be able to sway, because there are so many blue voters in Texas. It's just about making it accessible to them, which is a struggle, but it seems like they're aware of that battle. Yeah.
You think Texas is going to surprise us this year?
I hope so. I'm going to speak it into existence. I mean, it seems like this is the best chance that we've had. And that is something I've seen from Texas voters is like Texas can surprise you. Texas is not the stereotype largely. Like, it is not what a lot of people outside of Texas think that it is. And I think that gives me hope that maybe it wouldn't even be such a surprise. Like, maybe that's just them coming out in numbers.
Yeah. As Talarico says, raise your expectations. And anyone who watches this knows I am a major blue Texas skeptic and have been my entire political life, but I'm feeling it, guys. It's hard. It's getting hard to be skeptical about it.
I agree. I don't want to jinx it, but I do agree.
We can move on from some good news to our fourth story for the week, which is a crazy story. Israeli spying on the United States is back in the headlines. A move by the Pentagon this week, sending shockwaves through the White House and Trump world after the Defense Intelligence Agency raised the threat of Israeli anti-US spying to its highest alert level. The Pentagon says that this is the potential for human espionage. That's good old-fashioned spying and turning people and working covert double agents. The move comes as Israel and the U.S. have increasingly been at odds over the future direction of the Iran war. Some very public conflicts between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu over how this should proceed. One claim, the human espionage claim, the Israeli embassy blasts as, quote, completely false. But the rift is highlighting just how tenuous Donald Trump's behavior is making our alliances with everyone in the world, from Europe to Israel to Latin America to Africa. Our alliances are fraying like crazy. Jessie, what do you think comes from this?
I mean, I have a mix of emotions about it. It gives me some reassurance to know that Israel feels they need to spy on us. At first I was like, what could they possibly need to spy on us for? It's like a team thing. But also kind of our last ally out. And if Israel turns against us, that is a little bit frightening, I think, when who else do we have? I don't know. I really don't know where I see this going, because this is a total change in behavior from Trump. I think him and Netanyahu were like two peas in a pod before this, I feel.
Yeah. And for the Pentagon and the Defense Intelligence Agency to do this, knowing that this would find its way to the press, is a hugely inflammatory step. I mean, Israel is furious about this, and it sort of points to the challenging position Israel is in the United States right now. Its reputation is among the lowest levels it's ever been among Democrats and Republicans. And it seems to be that no matter which way Israel tries to play it, they're losing face in the United States at a record pace.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have to wonder what they've found, because I don't know that our federal government is super in tune with the people and what the people are feeling about Israel and how to address it, because they aren't really doing anything to get back in our good graces when it comes to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm really at a loss with this whole situation.
I wonder who else is spying on us, because I mean, I can also understand it. The United States has become a completely unreliable ally in the world. You cannot trust a thing Donald Trump says. You can't even trust the things that he says are true within the administration, because there's no way of knowing if the Pentagon got it right anymore. So really, your only choice is to try and find people to spy for any hope of knowing what's going on in here.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point, that I'm sure Israel is not the only country who has either attempted or succeeded at gaining information from within our government. And I can't imagine that the Trump administration is especially secure. But I do think it was a conscious choice for this information to get to us. And that makes me wonder, what are they attempting to accomplish by letting us know that specifically Israel is spying on us?
Yeah. And you make a great point. This is one of the most information insecure administrations in history. I mean, things seem to get out on prediction markets before they make it to the intelligence community. It's got to be stunningly easy to get some of these idiots to give up information.
Yeah. I mean, people say it all the time about Kash Patel's girlfriend being like exactly what you think of when you think, what is it, honeypot? Yeah. When men get trapped into that. Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that with Donald Trump right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that with Donald Trump right now.
Yeah.
Donald Trump honeypots himself 10 times a day.
Yeah. They give away so much. And yeah, Donald Trump doesn't even need to. He's just posting everything for us to see. I can't imagine the stress that puts on people who are trying to at least keep information secure and trying to spin it into he's trying to throw you off his trail when really he's just posting on Twitter.
Yeah. Oh, we fired all those people. They're gone.
That's true.
Anybody who knows how to log into the NSA system has been fired. So that's just sitting in a room somewhere.
Yeah.
And as we talk about the crazy crypto tech world of Donald Trump and this information insecurity and the rise of this crazy tech world, brings us to our fifth story, which just broke as we came out here today. The SpaceX IPO going to the moon. SpaceX opened today on the public markets for the first time, up 20% at the open, giving it a valuation of $2.1 trillion, which makes it technically more valuable than the entire nation of Spain. I don't know if Spain would agree. But the interesting thing about this is, it makes Elon Musk a trillionaire out of the gate. The first man to have $1 trillion on paper anyway. The tech bubble seems to be getting even bigger. 7 tech companies now account for about 30% of the value of the entire stock market. That's the most concentration ever in history. The problem is they don't actually make any money. SpaceX reported a nearly $5 billion loss last year and a $4 billion loss in the first quarter of 2026 alone. Not exactly prosperous, but the money keeps piling in. Jessie, what do you think? What happens when the music stops?
I don't think they know. I think we're already starting to witness they are growing increasingly less popular. We see it with the data centers. We see it with them trying to push AI on us. People are saying, why are we going to pay? Because that is where the cost falls, is on the consumer. You guys have all this money. Why are we paying for you to put up these data centers, use all of our resources for us to get nothing out of it, and for possibly this intelligence to take our jobs? I think we're very close to this bubble bursting and for things to get somehow worse even than they already are.
Yeah. And it's important to note that SpaceX as a company isn't just SpaceX. There's Twitter is involved in it. Starlink, the satellite company, is involved in it. A series of AI ventures like Grok are involved in it. Data center development. It's a company that does a lot of these speculative things that are doing well now, but haven't proven the ability to make any money. And to your point, young people hate it. This is, by one survey, the first technological innovation that a majority of young people have opposed.
Yeah. And I think it's increasingly, with the economy, frustrating for people to watch these people just make more and more and more money off of what? These aren't successful ventures for the most part. People aren't like, even Twitter is constantly at a loss from what Elon Musk bought it for. It's where is this money coming from, and why are you deemed the person who gets to have it? Yeah.
And New Yorkers obviously just loving Elon Musk and this SpaceX IPO. I think we have some video from earlier today out on the street outside the stock market. A gigantic, inflatable, shirtless Elon Musk. Who wants lunch?
Yeah, seriously. And that's a good point too. The Grok, I can't fathom why Elon Musk would not be in prison when Grok was making explicit content of minors every second. He may still be doing it. I don't know what the current is on that, but it's just
it still does. There was just a story out today that Grok is still making non-consensual sexual deepfakes of celebrity women on request. I mean, it's not a tool that's been fixed in any way.
No. And they clearly don't intend. I mean, I think that's also a fear that people have. Of course, they see this happening with Grok. It's like, that's an inevitability if we keep going with all of these technologies. And clearly these people have no intention of stopping that. I mean, obviously we've seen how things have gone in the government with the files. So it's obvious that's not their priority.
Yeah. How should people push back on this idea that Musk is now a trillionaire? I'm sure he's going to use that money for the good of everyone. But you see these companies just taking over not just the market, but the government and increasingly, schools and every part of our lives. How do you think people should push back?
I think it sounds cheesy and it feels hopeless, but voting really, and investing your money wisely, I hate to say investing, but spending your dollars intentionally where you trust the company, small business or local or whatever it may be, that accompanied by voting is our best weapon. It feels hopeful right now, the way that elections have been going. I think people were feeling defeated for a while, and we are, we don't have the tools at our disposal that these ultra elite wealthy people do. But that is something that we can do to just at least get us a little bit closer, to tax these people, to put regulations on AI, to fund our schools and our public resources. And if you take your dollars away from them, as marginal as it may feel, if enough of us do it, it will be impactful.
Yeah. Regulating AI. Imagine that. Congress actually doing its job. But to your point, I mean, Democrats now have shown in the generic ballot they're doing their best performance in a generation. So if this cracks anything like what we're seeing, we should be in for something really big in November that should bring the kind of change that we badly need.
And I think that also speaks to the point earlier about electing unsafe candidates. I think the more radical people that we put into these positions, the more likely we are to see actual steps in the right direction, not electing people who are going to play sort of by the rules or by the standard that Democrats have played by for however many years. We are seeing that it's possible to elect people like Zohran Mamdani, like perhaps Graham Plattner, Abdullah Syed running in Michigan. These people are there and they want to do the work, and we can make that possible for them. Yeah.
Well, Elon Musk is a trillionaire and you are not, America. So with that last big story, we've reached the end of the week. I'm your host, Max Burns, and as always, follow Lincoln Square on YouTube at Lincoln Square Media, on Substack at Lincoln Square. You can follow me on Twitter at TheMaxBurns. Let me know what you thought of the show. Send in your comments. Let me know if you thought the shirt was nice. It's steamy in New York, so I'm trying to relax here. Jessie, let people know how they can follow you and learn more about Pretty Informed Girls.
Yeah, absolutely. We're at Pretty Informed Girls on Substack. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. My personal TikTok is Jessie Beyer, or I think it's the Jessie Beyer. And my partner Meg's is Potato Princess, I believe, on TikTok.
That's a big tone shift. I like that. I like that.
Thank you so much, Max, for having me. This was a great talk.
It was a pleasure. All right, folks, that's it for us, but you can find even more videos on Lincoln Square Media on YouTube. I'll be back same time, same place next week. In the meantime, go out there and find as much magic in the world as Jerry Seinfeld did at the Knicks game.
Can't believe
Have a good
it.
weekend.
Bye.